Candidates, city staff, and fellow citizens. Thank you very much for attending our North Tempe Neighborhood Association and League of Women Voters Tempe Candidate Forum this evening. May I introduce the members of the League of Women Voters East Valley team, Morge Thornton and Jana Lynn Granillo. Am I saying that properly? Okay. Down in the front row, we'll keep time. Barbara Sherman, who's right here, and Sue Alcott in the back will review written questions from the audience for duplication and appropriateness. Shannon Dutton, Deborah Sajak will be doing the running of the questions this evening. Candidate positions on the dais were drawn randomly, and we will rotate turns to answer the questions. First, please silence your cell phones. Please also refrain from clapping or making noise indicating your approval or disapproval of a candidate's answer. We want everyone to hear the answers to the questions and get as many questions answered as possible in the time allotted. 5 questions were submitted with background information before the forum, and for those questions, the candidates will have up to 90 seconds to respond if needed. We ask that the questions from the audience this evening be submitted in writing. There are cards and pens on the table by the refreshments. However, if you need a card or have a completed question card, please just hold up your hand. One of our runners will assist you. Each candidate will have up to 60 seconds to answer the submitted written questions from the audience, and 30 seconds will be allowed for any rebuttal. The council candidate forum, which will end at 7:30, followed shortly by the mayoral candidate forum. At the end of this forum, each candidate will have 30 seconds to ask for your vote. So before I start the introductions, I have to tell you that unfortunately, Joel Navarro was not able to be here this evening because he was mandated to stay and work the Trump rally until it's dispersed. So he would much rather be here, I have a feeling. Anyway, so let's begin with the candidate introductions, and I think Randy is number 1, is that right? Yes. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to the North Tempe Neighborhood Association and the League of Women Voters East Valley team for putting on this, our 45th and final candidate forum of the 2020 election. Very pleased to be here and to answer your questions. My name is Randy Keating. I'm a first-term council member for the city of Tempe. I was elected in 2016, and since then I've served on 26 different working groups, which is more than 2.5 times the number of working groups of any other council member during that same time period. So if there's an issue in the city of Tempe that you care about, not only have I probably worked on it, I've probably worked on it more than once. I've governed in a way that has prioritized consensus and compromise over conflict, and because of that, I believe I've been very effective serving the people of Tempe at City Hall. Some of the things I'm most proud of are my work in affordable housing through the Tempe Maker District and the Tempe Down Payment Assistance Program, the Homeless Works program called Tempe Works, which provides a full path to self-sufficiency for Tempe's homeless population, and our highest in the state clean energy goals. Looking forward to taking your questions today. We have great candidates running for this office, so no matter who wins the election, the city of Tempe will be well represented. So thank you so much again for having me, and looking forward to it.
Hello, I'm Mark Norman. I'm a longtime local resident. I'm not much of a politician. I'm more a normal guy, a concerned citizen. I can't talk like Randy. I don't have that, but I'm so glad to be here, and I want nothing but the best for this city, and I hope during our discussion you can see that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Casey Klaus, and I'm running for Tempe City Council. I grew up in Tempe. I attended Corona del Sol High School before going to ASU for undergrad and law school. And I envision a Tempe that works for everyone, for all families. I will work to build a sustainable community, increase affordability, and make sure Tempe is a great place to live for people of all ages, from being a child-friendly city to a place where all of our seniors can age in place. I want to thank you all for having us and thank everyone for coming, and I look forward to having a discussion with everyone tonight.
Hi, my name is Doreen Garlotte, and I am also running for Tempe City Council. I'm really happy to be here. My husband and I raised our 4 children in Tempe. I have a ASU grad, NAU, and U of A, and one in heating and cooling school. So, and through that, I've been a really active member in the community for the last 30 years on many different boards and commissions, Girl Scouts, Little League, PTOs, currently on the Neighborhood Advisory Commission. I'm on the Newtown Community Land Trust Board and a number of other ones. I believe that with that community leadership experience and working out in the neighborhoods that I think I would be a really effective member of the Tempe City Council. So I look forward to your questions tonight, and I'm glad you all are here. Thank you.
Okay. So Barbara Sherman from the East Valley League of Women Voters is going to ask our first question.
Okay. Hi, welcome this evening. You've all had information sent to you so that you could do some research, and so we're. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Thank you. I'll try to talk clearly and distinctly. The candidates have already received information about affordable housing, workforce housing, and the homeless, and so the questions I have are: what is the City of Tempe doing to solve problems of the homeless? Question number 1, what should it be doing? And how can the City of Tempe increase its affordable housing stock to help the working poor, including the homeless? So 3 questions.
Okay, Mr. Norman, we're going to start with you.
The first one, the homeless epidemic. It's an insurmountable thing. We're getting crushed. It's an all-hands-on-deck effort. Everyone has to pitch in because I only see relief in sight. Curing this is, if we're going to be that compassionate city, we're going to have to act like it, and everyone's going to have to come correct and do the right thing. And what I do right now is I work with a lot of nonprofits. That's why I'd like to get a lot of more nonprofits involved. Like I work with Cloud Covered Streets, Unity Through Community, and we do things to ease the pain of the homeless. But as far as stopping the homeless from coming here, it's a really heavy lift. And I know it sounds like doom and gloom, but there's a regional approach has been, asked about, and that's great, but we need the other people in the region to come with us and help us do this. And that's probably the best thing, but it's if you want to stop the homeless epidemic or you want to relieve it, you're going to have to get active. And the second question, sorry.
The second question, the first question was, what is the City of Tempe doing, and then what should it be doing?
Okay, that's what we should be doing. But what was the second question then?
And the third question is, how can the City of Tempe increase its affordable housing stock to help the working poor, including the homeless?
Okay, there's currently a Urban Core Master Plan, and for developers to come in and build up, there's a point system, and they're left with like 4 levers. One's a sustainability, the other's amenities, and then there's historical preservation. And the 4th one is affordable housing. Those first 3 are very important, but we are under the gun. Eliminate those first 3. It should just be affordable housing. If anyone wants to build up, they must come and build affordable housing because we can't sustain this. I just read an article today that stated that people are getting not priced out of like Tempe, they're getting priced out of like having a home. They're becoming homeless. And we have to address affordable housing, and it's got to be our number 1 priority because that really would cover a lot of bases.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Close?
Thank you. So currently, the City of Tempe relies on partnerships with our faith groups to implement iHelp, which is a rotating shelter system where folks can sleep at the places of worship depending on the evening. For the second question, I think that it is important that we take a compassionate approach to helping people who do not have homes. I think we can do three things. One, we must work to expand affordable housing, affordable and workforce housing, and then implement creative solutions to get there and to ensure that people who work in Tempe can continue to live in Tempe. I think that when we are negotiating contracts with developers, we need to come in with a stronger stance to get affordable housing out of these development agreements, so that when developers come into our city, they are not driving the conversation, but we, the city, are driving the conversation, and how can we get to a place that works for all of us together. Two, I think we need a strong support system so that people, when they fall in hard times, do not become homeless. I think it's significantly less, it's more cost effective and it's easier to provide someone with a $500 loan or payment if they need rent assistance to keep them in their homes than to, for someone to become homeless and then to get them back into housing. And then three, I think when people are homeless, we need to utilize a housing first approach, have more permanent supportive housing for people, and then develop relationships with people to connect them to the resources that they need. It's difficult to get mental health services if you don't have a place to sleep at night. It's difficult to find a job if you don't have an address. And so I think it's important to get people into housing and then bring resources to folks.
Thank you. Ms. Garlotte?
So a few weeks ago, I went down to Tempe, and we did the point in time count, which is counting the homeless in the morning. And that, I knew that there was a homeless situation and issues here in the city of Tempe, and I hear it from other residents when I go around the Tempe, but to really go out and sit and talk to them and do this interview that we were doing with them in the morning, it was really eye-opening. Out of the 32 people that we counted, only one of them wanted to be on the street. So, they want housing, they want help. So the city of Tempe, your first question is, what's Tempe doing? I think Tempe's doing some great things, but I think we could do more. I think when, getting on council, I'd like to be able to look at the programs that we have and evaluate them and see which ones are working and continue to put more money into that one. And if another one's not working, then move on to do something else. And I think that one of the things that we do really well is, I think the iHelp that Casey was talking about, I got that started at my church. And I know how important that is for somebody to have a good place to sleep at night. Regarding your second question about, what can we do about the homeless? Is that right, the second question?
It was, what's Tempe doing, what should it be doing?
Okay.
And how do we increase affordable housing?
So I think I kind of answered that, what Tempe's doing, and I think what we should be doing is we should be looking at things like adaptive reuse of some of our buildings. There's a hotel down on Apache. Why can't we turn that into apartments? Why can't we look at maybe annexing the county island and putting some affordable housing there? I think there's opportunities for us to do this, but I think we need to look at and the developers and look at incentivizing, giving more incentives to get people to get us some more open housing. And I was meeting with Darlene Newsome at the UMOM, and one of the things that she talked about is finding ways that we could work together and collaborate between what she's been doing, finding a problem, solving what you can solve, and working with other partnerships. And I think that's one of the things that we can do.
Thank you very much. Okay, Darlene Justice is going to read the next question. Oh, Randy, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I forgot about the rotation.
I'm very forgettable.
Never.
So the first question was, what is Tempe doing? And look, I know it doesn't seem like Tempe's doing a whole lot, but we really are. And unfortunately, the homeless epidemic has increased 24% in Maricopa County over just last year. So this is exploding in our county, in our state, our region, and in our nation, unfortunately. Right now, today, Tempe spends more per capita than any other city in the region on homeless and human services. It's one of the biggest single line items that we have in our municipal budget. Obviously, that's not working. The problem's only getting worse. We need to do things like engage our regional partners. I serve on the Housing First Working Group, and that's one of the things that we did. We directed our city manager to get with Mesa, get with Chandler, get with Scottsdale, get with Phoenix, and come up with an approach to this thing that is actually doable for us as a region. Because right now, Tempe is carrying more than its fair share of the burden, and that's deteriorating the quality of life in the city. as well as, being unfair to the Tempe taxpayers who are funding these programs. So what we need to do is make sure that the region itself is unified with some sort of actionable plan to help alleviate these stresses. Your third question was about affordable housing. Unfortunately, the legislature does not allow us to mandate affordable housing. If you went up and voted against a project because it didn't include affordable housing and you said that up there at the dais, we'd be sued. So what we need to do is create the market conditions that allow for affordable housing. We need to look at things like adaptive reuse. We just put a mixed-use zoning overlay over an area along Broadway Road that's going to be able to attract, it already has attracted near 400 workforce housing units to that area. So we got to get creative with it, right? I love the idea of converting a hotel to apartments. Things like that, these out-of-the-box solutions, anything we can do to increase our housing supply as fast as we can will help alleviate the pressure that's on the existing affordability market. So, yeah, actually, I think that's it. I'm stopping, right? Yeah.
Okay, now Darlene Justice will read the second question.
Okay. This again is one of the 5 that was sent to you, and this one had quite a long list of things. Economic development in North Tempe. I'm going to summarize with this question, though. How would you address economic development in North Tempe's County Island and along Indian Bend Wash and the development land along Hayden Road? What might your vision be for appropriate development? Would you support the momentum that we now have with the recently cleaned up frontage on McKillips and Curry? And I guess that goes to...
So with Indian Bend Wash, I think, I support efforts to invest in the open space, either as a park facilities, including cleanup and vegetation restoration. And I also think it's worth exploring because of its location. It's near transit already, transit-oriented development to add affordable housing near the improved public spaces and near transit. Part of the reason people get priced out of areas is not just the cost of housing, but the cost of housing plus transportation. And so if you're already near transit, it's really great for people who need affordable housing and can get around if they can use transit as well and lower their monthly bills.
I think one of the parts of that question was talking about the Salt River Pima Maricopa community. And I've met with the president and the vice president of the community and talked to them about some type of work that we could do together and what do they do with the city of Tempe. And they are really excited about jumping on board and doing things with the city of Tempe, and development is one of them. And I think that being as a native, I would love to get on council and work with them to do something like that. As far as the Indian Bend Wash and the areas, I would love to, the most important thing that I'm doing when I'm running for council is I want to open up the ability for neighbors to have a stronger voice in what happens. So I would like to meet with neighbors and people of that area, people who really know that area, and talk to them about what they would like to see. I mean, my vision would be I'd love to see the Indian Bend Wash area look something beautiful like the Scottsdale has their Indian Bend Wash area. I would like to sit down with Mr. Singh and say, what do you see? What would you like to see out here? Because he's living right next to it. Again, when I was doing the point in time count, I'm so glad that they cut the bushes down there, because that's where some of the homeless were living, and we couldn't see them. We're living in there, so it's nice to see that that area is getting cleaned up, but we do need to figure out what to do. And I think my vision or my idea would be making that area a place that's a signature place that we want to go to, that makes all of us in Tempe, and especially the people north of the river, really proud of what that area will look like. And I'd love to work on a plan to do that.
You remembered me this time. I actually lived north of the lake for a period of about 4 or 5 years, from like 2003 to 2008-ish. And so I know that area very well, and I know the character of that area as compared to some of the other areas in the city. And often there's this thing that we like to do as politicians is talk about like North and South Tempe, even though I don't subscribe to that. There's only ever been one Tempe, and everything we do is for the entire city. But whenever you're talking about North Tempe, no one's talking about north of the lake. Like that's always like the afterthought. In River, okay, yeah, it's Tempe Town River. So, the question about the county island. I actually serve on the working group that's looking at annexing the county island. And the reason why we're doing that is because we in the city council want more control over the businesses that are allowed to operate there. There's been some medical marijuana dispensaries that have tried to come, and I know Darlene has done a lot to make sure that those don't come. But ultimately, that's out of our hands in the Tempe City Council. So that's why you see some parts of that area that have some undesirable businesses. Why there's no code enforcement in certain areas, as was originally part of the question, because that's not the city property. But there is a large. I mean, it sounds easy, right? Let's annex this and let's take care of it. But it's not. It's actually really expensive because they don't have the basic infrastructure that the city has to have. Like I'm talking sewers and a strong electrical grid. So while we're working on this, I think it's very important that we bring those county islands north of the lake into the city fold. And as far as economic development opportunities north of the lake, we need to see amenities up there. We need to see we're so close to the downtown area. I don't think there would be too many folks that would be against being up there north of the lake if it got some of the TLC that other areas of the city got as well.
Thank you.
So this is the forgotten Tempe, South Scottsdale. But I hate to sound like a complete wonk on this, but that is the perfect area to start dealing with affordable housing and getting it in there, because I just feel like downtown Tempe is so saturated that we should just take a breath and finish all these glorious buildings and go on the outskirts, and that would be the perfect place for that. So as far as economic development, I'm all for affordable housing in that area. And like Randy said, the infrastructure has to be built up, but it is starting from scratch, and it'd be a great place to do such a project.
Okay, thank you. I'll read the next question. Okay, so the next question is, Tempe's goal to have a 25% tree canopy by 2040, a strategic priority in the sustainable growth and development. Tempe is getting regional attention for our Papago Park Preserve, Desert Conservation Commission, and the city has now a climate action plan and an urban forest master plan. Tempe has hired the only urban forester in the state of Arizona. How do you propose to maximize and support these strategies and master plans that intend to protect our environmental health, urban forestry, desert flora, and infrastructure in the city?
Okay. So I think it's really important for us to support all of those. I loved reading the Urban Forestry Master Plan and the idea of the trees that we want to get planted by 2040. I would actually I understand that on council that at a certain time that you can talk about fast tracking a project, and I would love to see if there's possibility to fast track some of those trees, get them in sooner, encourage people to do more walking and biking around our community. I'm on the Neighborhood Advisory Commission, and we supported the Sustainability Commission before the council and saying that we are approving and supporting them with the Climate Action Plan. And so I really think that one of the best things that we could do is work with the neighbors and get people to understand what the Climate Action Plan is and what we can do, what the Urban Forestry Master Plan is, because a lot of people have no idea what that is. But it's an information thing, getting people to buy into the importance of having that and how they can stand behind it. And then think about those things that we can do just in our own homes that can make a difference. We've got this great tree program with the city of Tempe that it's like $75 per year per house that can get a tree through the city of Tempe. You've got 25 cents per square foot that you can get for taking out grass and putting in something else in your yard. SRP has a 2 free tree program that we could use, but trying to inform people about the things that we could do just in our own house. You can start there and then work with our way out and get them to understand what the plans are so that we can do a better job about pushing forward these plans.
To answer your question, we need to prioritize and fund these plans. The urban forestry plan is, and we did hire an urban forester, and the trees have already started to be planted, particularly up and down our major arterials. So I'm very pleased that that's moving forward. Things like not the Urban Core Master, what was the other plan you mentioned?
The climate action plan?
Climate Action Plan, thank you very much. Those are other things that, look, it's easy to make a plan. Well, it's not actually. A lot of people put in a lot of time, and a lot of really smart people devoted a lot of their effort to do these things. But ultimately, a plan is only a plan unless it's executed. So we need to make sure that when we're having the budget discussions that are coming up now, that we're putting, if you show me what you spend your money on, I'll show you what your values are. So we need to make sure that we're funding the initiatives in these plans. We need to make sure that we're working with our local nonprofits, those groups like Trees Matter, that provide free trees to municipalities, and they've done so a couple times in Tempe. There's our faith-based groups as well, who are very active in our community, who are always willing to give a hand with some of these things when we need organizing around certain issues. So it's engaging the neighbors, it's engaging the stakeholders, it's making sure that the city is funding these plans once they're finally come to council and they are approved, that it's not just, hey, we're going to pat ourselves on the back and move on to the next issue, because it's easy to do that. It's hard to set your priorities, set your budget, and stick to them. Because the point I do make, and I have 30 seconds left, is that there's this idea out there that the city of Tempe has this unlimited amount of money, and I can tell you that is not the case. If we say, look, I want to spend something here, then I'm cutting from here. And that's where the devil always is, in the details. Anyone can say, we should spend more money on this or that, but what are we going to take away from then? And so that's always what we struggle with as a council when we're going through the budget process. But I know for the forestry plan and the climate action plan, those are priorities for me.
I think Tempe does pretty well with the climate action plan, things like that. We're very, conscious of this, and I'm for trees. I like them, and I want them planted. But like Randy said, it's like what I've seen in this whole process is a lot of people want this and that, but you have to prioritize. You can only have one of them. And the argument there is, like, when you win an election, 50% of the people are going to hate you. And that's just how it's going to happen. And we have to prioritize what we want and what's more important to us. And I love trees. Thank you.
I think it's crucial that we invest in our urban tree canopy. So I think it's very important that we invest in this plan and fund the plan. Trees, not only clean our air, but they reduce heat island effect, and they improve health outcomes for people. And so I think that we need to, increase our urban tree canopy. We should invest in strategically planted drought-resistant trees near sidewalks that improve walkability for people. They incentivize walking and biking instead of driving, so they take people out of cars and reduce traffic. Retail shops that are near on shaded streets actually have higher sales than others because people walk and they linger more, and so having that really increases our economic development. And also homes that have trees have higher property values than homes that do not, so our neighbors benefit by planting the trees, in addition to the city benefiting and everyone's health.
This question was submitted by Stu Seifer for the Tempe Historic Preservation Foundation. This is a question about Tempe's urban core and historic core. Under the proposed urban core master plan, the urban core district, building heights or 90 foot, 130 foot, 7 to 9 stories will be permitted in the proposed downtown historic core along Mill Avenue between 4th and 6th Streets. This would likely detract from the 2 and 3 story scale and the historic character of the iconic area of the city. Are you concerned about allowing such tall buildings in this historic zone? And if so, what policy would you propose? propose?
So first, about the Urban Core Master Plan, that's something that the council is considering and has been a very long process. And again, a lot of smart people spend a lot of time bringing this forward. That said, I do have some serious concerns about the Urban Core Master Plan, specifically with regards to historical preservation. One of the things the City Council can do when we're voting against something is talk about the character of the area, is talk about historical preservation's concerns. So I don't think that this council, or really any future council, if they want to stay on the council, would allow Mill Avenue, particularly its historic buildings, to be either replaced or overshadowed. I certainly wouldn't, and I don't know any of my current colleagues that would. You know, as far as, you know, buildings coming into the downtown, we already have a lot of tall buildings in the downtown area, so it's important that we maintain those setbacks. It's important that, hey, look, if I have the Andre building over here, I don't have a 100-story tower right behind it. There's got to be some separation there from our historical corridor, and there's got to be a buffer zone between those types of developments and our neighborhoods. So, you know, it's one of those things that, again, the devil's always in the details, and it is such a complicated problem that, you know, kind of some background on the Urban Core Master Plan is that right now our system is so hodgepodge that we were kind of looking for something we could really do and give some certainty out there. You know, that said, again, I do have some big concerns about what we've come back with, and I'm actually meeting with staff next week to discuss those concerns, and I've heard from residents and developers alike that they have concerns. And when you have residents and developers so adamantly on each other's side, it really gives you some pause and think, you know, there's something going on here, and there's some concerns out there that need to be addressed before we move forward with something like this that could end up being so impactful on our historical corridor.
I don't feel that anyone's going to mess with a historical home, because the backlash on that is just through the roof. No one wants that. And there's no way some developer's going to come in and be able to weasel their way through that. And I hope this is true, actually. But like, I've been here since '88, and I'm basically fighting for the soul of Tempe. And as I said before, it's like, I would like to finish all the growth that we have right now. Finish everything up and take a breath and think about what we're going to do next and not make any foolish decisions. But no one's going to mess with historical places. It's just not going to happen. I don't believe. So that's my...
So I think it's important to look at the situations project by project. It's not something I think that happens, you know, all at once or can have one solution. But I do think there are advantages to having taller buildings and denser living. How tall depends on, you know, where you are in the situation. But currently the ADA only requires an elevator once you hit 4 stories, and most of our multifamily housing is 3 stories. So most of our multifamily housing is inaccessible to people, whether they have disabilities or they're seniors who want to age but just can no longer make it to their 3rd floor apartment. So I think it's really important that we look at all the impacts that we have. So one more floor might get you an elevator and might get you access to a really large group of people who need housing. So I think we need to balance all of these interests when we're making decisions. Taller buildings also create walkable communities that reduce traffic. If people can walk to their amenities, then they're not driving. This is incredibly important for people who have disabilities and cannot drive, or people, you know, people with epilepsy, or people who have vision issues or just have aged out of driving, and they can live near transit and get around and still have independence that I think is crucial here in Tempe.
So I've seen the presentation, and it's the Urban Core Master Plan, but I think you're talking about the bonus plan, which is an addition to the Urban Core Master Plan. And we had a presentation at that when I was on the Neighborhood Advisory Commission, I think like 3 months ago. And the unfortunate thing was there was so much information that was thrown in there, it was really hard to understand exactly what was trying to get accomplished. And I'm not saying that the city staff has done a poor job. It was just, for somebody who was new, a layperson, I just couldn't understand all of it. The thing that's really important to me, and I've talked about this to many different groups that I've been to, that it's really, historic preservation is really, really important to me. And you know, we need to protect the buildings that we have, and I'm not sure putting tall buildings behind a historic building is the right thing. Again, I didn't really quite understand the plan and how that was really going to work. I think the most important thing for us to be able to do is to be able to talk to the neighbors, pay attention to that character area that we spent so much time and so much money on, really listening to our neighbors, look at our character area and see if that's really what we want to put downtown. The other one is just listen to the neighbors, listen to the businesses that are around there and talk to them. Again, I'm about reaching out to the neighborhood and building those relationships so that we can understand what's happening, why they want it to happen. And so I'm not really a supporter of that right now because I did not understand the plan.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask the last question that we had pre-submitted to you, and it's on stormwater drainage and flooding in North Tempe. There have been serious issues intensifying over the years due to more severe downpours and inadequate stormwater drainage. The Maricopa County Stormwater Study for Scottsdale and North Tempe, completed in 2016, prioritized regions in North Tempe. This question has been submitted by Shannon Dutton, who's been personally affected by this. If elected, how would you address the serious issues of floodwater in North Tempe? How would you improve communication regarding Tempe's progress and scheduling? Would this be a priority for you?
Well, I feel what's happened in the past, and you know, coming off the heels of the Great Recession and everything, we've ignored maintenance to a degree, just trying to recover. And what we, you know, this is climate change coming in hot, in my opinion, and it's, you know, with all the flooding and all that stuff, it's like the raindrops are bigger. The clouds are brown now. They're not even gray anymore. They're not even messing around. And it's like, oh, we have to prepare for this. And as I pivot to climate change, which Casey's real good at, is we have to acknowledge that it's real. And it's the only reason that people don't think it's real is because of messaging. And that's just coming from a certain party that is just relying on, they have their political lobbyists and, you know, special interests, and then there's scientists. Who are you going to pick? But this is happening, and it's real, and yes, do not ignore them, but we had to put that in the back burner for a long time because so many other stuff had to get done. But that's what I got there.
I definitely understand this as a problem. I live in North Tempe and have had, you know, times when I can't leave my house because of the water, can't, you know, bike far because the bike wouldn't work. And we're only going to see worsening storms with the climate crisis, and they're just going to make things worse, and this will become a problem. So I think it's important that we invest in it now to solve the problem and then mitigate future potential damages. Storms can trap people in their house, they can impact power, and these are incredibly dangerous for the chronically ill and disability community as well as seniors. And so we should invest in green solutions to sink rainwater into the ground, bioswales or stormwater planters that divert stormwater into the planters with native species that then hold onto the water and help it slowly percolate into the ground are a great resource for getting rid of the stormwater, getting it out of the streets, and then into a separate place where then it slowly goes into our ground and is lessens the impact on our stormwater infrastructure. These can also be used to protect pedestrians from streets, from cars, protect pedestrians or bikers or anyone who's not in a car from the traffic. And so I think that what's great about some of these solutions is that they solve multiple problems at once, so we can create safer roads while also solving our stormwater drainage problems.
So I just have to first say that seeing those pictures, I was shocked. I have been on medical mission trips in third world countries and have been there during a storm and seeing water rushing down the middle of the road, and when I looked at that picture, it looked the same. So I was really, really surprised, and I'm very sorry for the issues that you have and have had at your home. I think what you would ask what we would do to address this. I would like to know what the city has already done to address this. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question because I'm not on council right now. But I'd like to know that it says that the report was done, finished in 2016. So I don't know if it's a funding issue or what the problem is or why we can't get that taken care of. But I look at that as a safety and a health issue that you've got rushing water coming down. I'd like to know what the city of Scottsdale has done already with this process, and then what are we looking at? The other thing that you had asked, or one of the part of the question is, I would open that up to better communication. I mean, the residents, the homeowners should know that they should not have to have sandbags in front of their house all the time because of the rainwater, and you never know what's going to be coming down. I think working on better communication and maybe bi-weekly meetings or monthly meetings or something so that people understand what's happening and they know that we are actually paying attention to that issue. Again, I think it's a health issue, and I would like to know what the city has already been doing about it. I don't know that answer.
I can answer that. So we had the study that finished in 2016. I think it was presented to council, I want to say mid-2018. It seems like it was not too long ago, but it very well could have been a long time ago. And what we decided was, look, the council, there needs to be infrastructure there to handle the influx of water that we're seeing. Tempe is one of the few cities that has a pretty robust sewer system to clear the water off of our roads. But what doesn't have that is county islands. So the existing sewer infrastructure north of the lake is often overwhelmed trying to drain this water, get it off standing areas because of the fact that more water is trying to go through a lesser amount of actual existing infrastructure. So big projects like that are outrageously expensive. So what we generally do is we don't put them in the general fund that we finance the city from day to day with, but we put it in what we call our capital improvements budget. And these are larger infrastructure type projects, repaving the roads, or we're doing some streetscape work along Broadway hopefully here in 4 years. But it's a matter of when you put it on, everything else kind of goes first. So you put it on, it's kind of a 5-year window. So I'm not sure where that is right now. It depends on how long ago that decision was made, anywhere from last month to a year and a half ago, by my recollection. That was a joke. I'm just kidding. It's not that big of a... it's one of those things that we have heard, and we are investing actively in some of the things that have been talked about as far as like natural mitigation efforts. But really, we need that existing infrastructure in the county island to be the county islands to be incorporated, and additional infrastructure to be put in, which will be capital improvements. So it'll be a long process, unfortunately, before this problem is really solved.
Okay, Darlene's got the first question from the audience. Um, 60 seconds to answer these questions. Okay. Yes.
Yes, the first one, they had a lot to read on some of them, and so we thought they'd say more. Question, what is your education and background? What is your educational and work background? Some of you have not included that in your bio. What is your take on Tempe Town Lakes development? Those are 2 questions.
Oh, for them combined.
So I went to ASU for undergrad, where I studied public service and public policy, and then went to ASU for law school and focused on law and sustainability. I currently work as an attorney, and I negotiate contracts day to day. Tempe Town Lake, I live at Hardy and Second, which is just south of Rio Salado, and I love living near the lake. I bike near the lake. I, take walks near the lake. I think it's fantastic. I think having a place for people to go and recreate is really important. And they've added a lot of public art into the park and into, along the lake. So I really love that. I think that the development has increased, the development near the lake and near Mill has increased the investment then in the lake. So I've been really appreciative. Oh, okay, I'm done.
Okay, so I'm a product of Mesa Community College. I left the community college and started working at Channel 10 Television, and so I tell people that I am a product of creativity and working my way up through the ranks. I started off as a newsroom secretary, and in 2 years I took over as the business manager for the news department in charge of a $4.8 million budget, so I'm pretty proud of that. And I'm sorry, what was the question for the Town Lake?
Okay, and what is your take on Tempe Town Lake development?
As far as the activities, the building, the development around it, I'm trying to think, if we're not doing any more develop right now. I like the idea of the Rio Salado project where we're trying to build, or they're looking at building more activities and more things along the lake to provide more activities to bring people down there and bring our community together. I love that. I love the activities that we have down there right now also.
So the story I always tell about how I ended up in Arizona was being the excellent high school student that I was, Michigan State chose not to admit me to their fine establishment, and Arizona State did. So, I would say, I think East Lansing's out a very effective council member, but, their decision was obviously the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I moved to Tempe in 2003 to attend ASU. As far as my work background goes, I've done a lot of different things, and I only have 30 seconds, but I've had like a Forrest Gump type deal. But what I do right now is I'm the marketing manager for a healthcare company based in Scottsdale. So I do things like design sales aids for doctors and brand and position products, help organize kind of logistical meetings, things like that. Tempe Town Lake. Tempe Town Lake is the second most visited tourist attraction in the state. And that doesn't happen without the environment that we've created there. Tempe Beach Park, some of the amenities that are in that area. Those drive a lot of revenues for the city, and it'd be impossible for me to imagine Tempe without it.
I'm also a product of Mesa Community College. And my main education would be through doing. I've been an activist for years. I've been trying to help the greater good for years, and that's what I'm pretty much hanging my hat on. And as far as what the Tempe Town Lake is, Tempe Center for the Arts is one of the greatest things in this city. And it is such a nice, great place for people to come from all over the country and just sort of get a feel for what Tempe's all about. And as far as development goes, I would rather have ASU not gobble up all the land, because we need that for affordable housing. Back to that. Okay.
Okay, next question. What are your plans for reducing traffic congestion in Tempe? Specific areas asked about are rural, southern, McClintock, and what about reducing the speed?
Okay, so traffic, it's so funny. It doesn't matter what part of the city that you go to. Everybody is talking about traffic, and it doesn't matter what time of day. We're all talking about traffic. So one of the things that I would like to see is I'd like to see more bus routes or orbit that gets down to the southern part of the city to give some people more opportunities to be able to get into the downtown area and not take our vehicles. I don't see a traffic issue really south of Baseline. I see it north. And so if you want to come here, I want to find ways to be able to get people out of their cars and biking or walking or using the bus system. But one of the things we want to do is we don't want to leave the businesses out of being able to have people from the other parts of the city come in and use the businesses, use the restaurants, visit downtown Tempe, because we can't get in here, or we don't want to come down because the traffic is so bad. So I think it's really trying to get people out of their vehicles and get them walking, biking, or using our multimodal system.
You know, traffic is one of those issues you hear no matter where you are in Tempe and no matter who you're talking to. It's obviously a very big concern. We need to do things like make public transportation a more accessible and more attractive option. Right now, if you wanted to ride the bus from where I live, Guadalupe and McClintock, to downtown, it'd take you a long time, and then you'd have to stand in the sun in an unsheltered bus stop for unknown periods of time. And I used to take the bus when I first moved to Tempe in 2003, and a lot of times that bus wouldn't come. And you know, in July, August, it's uncomfortable to wait another 20 minutes for another bus to come. So we have to not only increase our the coverage and frequency of our public transportation options, but we need to make sure that those public transportation options are then viable and then and help reduce traffic. Things like bus pullouts, right? So that traffic doesn't line up behind a bus as it's picking up passengers. Some we have that somewhere, and others we don't. We need bus rapid transit along our major arterials so that you're not sitting in traffic with a dedicated lane, so you can get through the city in a reasonable amount of time.
Traffic, the elephant in the room. It is, we're pretty much screwed because downtown is just overbuilt. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. There is no answer here. It's like bus pull-out, sure, fine. Share rides, get out of cars, all that stuff. But we are so dense right now, we're screwed. I don't really know if there are answers. We have to figure something out. Hovercrafts? No. Yeah.
So I believe the best way to cut down on traffic is to get people out of cars, and that means investing in a multimodal form of transportation, improving our public transportation with shaded transit centers, a tracking app for Orbit so people can more reliably use Orbit, and bus cutouts, as mentioned. I think we need safer bike and scooter infrastructure so that people can have short trips without getting in a car, and then increasing trees next to sidewalks so that we have a more walkable community, so that when you have just a short trip, you don't have to get in your car, you can walk. Trees make it about 6 to 10 degrees cooler, so if you save 6 to 10 degrees, you can perhaps walk instead of rely on your car. I think we also should work with our businesses to do traffic demand management. We know that there are peak times in traffic, and there are times when there's not as much traffic, and that's when everyone's going to work and everyone's getting home. And so we should work with our businesses on either having flex time or work from home schedules so that we have fewer cars on the road at that particular time. Thank you.
I'm sorry. What is Tempe doing? What should it be doing about climate change? Second part of the question is, have you accepted any money from fossil fuel companies or PACs?
So Tempe recently passed our climate action master plan, which is something I was very happy to support, that lays out 12 different tactics that we can do to at least combat our impact on the earth here in the city of Tempe. As I mentioned earlier, now that we have the plan, we got to make sure that we execute it as well. And that's going to take resources from the city, and I think the council is united in our will to do that. I also served on the working group that brought Tempe the highest clean energy goal in the state. Tempe will be carbon neutral well before any other city in Arizona will be. And that's because of the fact that climate issues are important to not only me, but the rest of the council. Have I accepted money from any fossil fuel companies or PACs? The answer is no.
No one's going to give a Bernie supporter like me any money from that industry. That's just never going to happen. But it's I feel like we're in good shape in Tempe, just with the programs we have, and it's like the fact that Tempe is, the ASU is #1 in like innovation. We can solve things. The climate action plan is perfect. In 20 years, we're doing way better than other cities. And it is just as long as we stay the course, we're fine, and realize that climate change is a real thing. And I think we're in really good shape in that. And like I said, they're not giving me any money.
I believe in respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part, and this guiding principle demands that I act on climate. The climate crisis is the existential threat of our time, and I believe that all levels of government should be working to combat this. We can do this by improving our urban tree canopy to promote walkability and combat heat island effect, improve public transportation, promote walkable housing development, particularly near transit, to decrease resident reliance on cars, create resilience hubs to prepare for rising temperatures and increasing natural disasters, places with solar power that can give out resources during natural disasters for people, and then promote water conservation now to prepare for our future droughts. I have taken $0 from any fossil fuel PACs. I've taken $0 from any PACs. Our campaign is funded by real people with a low average dollar donation of under $40.
So I think all governments have a responsibility to take action right now on climate change, and I was really, really proud to be a part of the Neighborhood Advisory Commission when we supported the passing of the Climate Action Plan. The great thing is that our commission is going to continue to work with the Sustainability Commission to take on the Climate Action Plan too, so I really get to be a part of that, and I'm really happy about that. One of the things that I think is really important for us to do is to be able to promote some of the things that we have, like I mentioned before about the trees that we can get from the city of Tempe. I also think it's really important that Tempe has a great program called the Water Smart program, and I hosted an event at my house for my neighborhood to talk about what the Water Smart program is and how that could really make a difference in our community if we start, again, at home, making a difference in our community. And I think that that's something that we continue to go out and promote within the community. I think, again, it's telling people, giving them information, inform our neighbors about these programs. And in April, I took the No Fossil Fuel Money pledge.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is Scottsdale and Hayden Roads. I think they're referring to north of the river, appear to be becoming a strip mall with unsavory businesses like smoking lingerie. What can Tempe do about this?
About.
So what can Tempe do about having strip malls like are being prolific along those two streets?
Well, I'm a big mom and pop shop kind of guy, and I think that goes to, strip malls exist and they're going to exist, but I'm really not sure. And that I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. As like I said, I'm a first timer here, and I really don't have an answer to that question. But Randy does.
Casey, you're next.
So the city cannot prohibit, businesses that one sees as unsavory from existing within the city. The city does have to provide a space for that, though we can have zoning or guidances that say, you need to be so many feet from a school, you need to be so many feet from somewhere else to protect when things are in the public interest. But we cannot say that no, strip clubs exist in the city. But I think it's important that we also invest in other businesses along there and other developments to happen so that people have other options and it doesn't become taken over by just these sort of businesses that don't provide the residents necessarily services. There's not a grocery store north of the river before you hit Scottsdale. These kind of things that real residents need. and residents probably would frequent a grocery store more than some of these businesses.
I think I'd go back again to the neighbors. Knowing what the neighbors want in their community, paying attention to the character areas, and being proactive in recruiting the best possible businesses that we can. If you see a location that's open, we should be being proactive to recruit the businesses that we want here and that the neighborhoods would like to have in their area. So I think it really goes back to working really hard to know what each area of our community is and working hard to listen to the neighbors and understand what their interests are and what needs to be filled in that area. Again, if it's a grocery store, if it's a restaurant, if it's something, what do we need to feed that area? And I think just being proactive is the most important thing.
So how we control what businesses go where in the city of Tempe is we have zoning ordinances that say you can't have 2 adult businesses within X amount of feet of each other. And that's why we don't see that kind of phenomenon south of the river, is because that's all city of Tempe. There's a reason why you can have a strip club next to a medical marijuana dispensary, next to a porn shop, next to a pawn shop, all within the same block of each other in that area, and that's because it's a county island. And unfortunately, a lot of that stuff came there before people were really kind of paying attention to that. And as you know, if it weren't for the diligence of the North Tempe Neighborhood Association, there'd be another medical marijuana dispensary coming pretty quickly to that area. So what we need to do is figure out a long-term plan to annex the county island, build the infrastructure that we need to solve some of the other problems we're seeing north of the river. And I'm proud to serve on that working group that's actually looking at that right now. In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow to go over some of the logistics that staff is bringing back to us to move that forward.
It is my understanding that Tempe police and firemen cannot endorse a candidate, and for good reason. We don't want to politicize the men and women who serve all residents of Tempe. What are you doing to address the misleading signs out there that tell Tempe residents your police and firemen support candidates?
So I am not on those signs, but the signs have been paid for by a PAC that other firefighters associations have paid into to put out an IE or an independent expenditure to put up those signs. But I have none of the candidates have had a say in what the signs say, but my name's not on them, so I haven't paid attention too much.
So my name is on there, and we don't have control. We weren't told about these things that we're going to be put out in the neighborhood. We had no control over them. If I did, I would have asked for my name to be a lot bigger than it is, because you can't see it when you go by, but we don't have control over that. So yes, I do think when it says it is a little misleading, but yes, thank you.
Hey, I'm with you on the bigger thing. I mean, come on, who designed those signs? So I'm glad that this was pointed out, that is an independent expenditure, and we're literally legally not allowed to talk to them at all. So I couldn't even call up who put it up there and said, hey, take that down. The fact of the matter is Tempe firefighters and police participate in regional and local unions, and it's those unions that have endorsed the candidates that are on those signs. So, while it does say your firefighters and your police officers, it is the union that they are a voting member of that has gone ahead and made those endorsements. So like a kind of real bad example I used at the Changing Hands forum was that, look, if someone from the Puppy Beaters Society put out a sign that say, puppy beaters support Randy Keating, and someone's going to take that out of context, there would be nothing I could do about that because that's protected speech and illegal under our system for us to even address, unfortunately.
I am not on those signs as well. And I get it, they're not supposed to do it, but it's, I mean, I support these guys, and I support the police and fire. And the only thing that bothers me about those signs is they took up all the real estate on every corner in the city. And I came late to the game because I got in a car crash, and I'm like, oh, you guys are killing me. Anyway.
Okay. If elected, how will you work to make Tempe cyber secure? Keep our infrastructure and information assets secure.
I would say I would work with the technology department to make sure that we are as updated and using the most innovative equipment and processes as possible to keep our information safe. I would, for one, would like to keep all my information safe, and so I would like to do the same thing for the residents of Tempe. I don't know how the process, how it works and what companies we work with, but I would hope that we work with the best ones around.
I agree with what Ms. Garlotte just said. I do have an IT and tech background, and I used to work for a company called Avnet, which is a big employer right here in Tempe. And then I worked for another company called Tech Data, or Tech Data, I forgot what they prefer, that's also right here in Tempe. And one of the things that we were always looking at was cybersecurity. Obviously, any sort of governmental body needs to be very secure when it comes to that kind of threat. There's a lot of confidential memorandums that are sent around. There's a lot of things that we get that we're not allowed to discuss until that decision's been made by the council that we're kind of considering. And it's important that we maintain that level of what's the word I'm looking for here? Disclosure. So it's important to me that the city of Tempe continue its efforts. We do have a couple companies that we contract with. I do have to reset my password like every third day, and that's obviously a security precaution to make sure that we are being as secure as we possibly can. And I have full faith in our IT staff to make sure we stay that way.
Yeah, the key thing that Randy just said was staff. The staffers in the upside down pyramid, they're a great group. They've been there for like an average of 10 years. Me, this not being my wheelhouse, I would defer to them to make us safe and secure.
Yeah, I think it's important to admit when you don't know what you don't know, and so I am not an IT specialist, so I would refer or ask the experts on how to keep Tempe safe and secure, and then use their recommendations to do so.
Okay, Tempe has passed Vision Zero, which is very praiseworthy. There are a number of streets without sidewalks and handicapped accessibility. What can Tempe do to enforce car, bike, and skateboard limits?
Can whoever submit that, could you clarify what you mean by car, bike, and skateboard limits? Like on the sidewalk, not on the sidewalk, on the road?
Yeah, let me go, let's see. There are a number of streets without sidewalks and handicapped accessibility, some in North Tempe. What can Tempe do to enforce car, bike, and skateboard limits? That's what it
Okay.
says.
Well, I'll speak to the sidewalk thing, and then I'll kind of speak to what I believe the second part of the question is. The sidewalk issue is just aged infrastructure that hasn't been revitalized or revamped yet. One of those areas is near the Tempe Maker District, which is a zoning overlay that we just put in on the Broadway area. And part of that includes that kind of right-of-way improvements to bring sidewalks to that area, because it doesn't have sidewalks. And to bring things like bike lanes to that area, because a large portion of that road does not have one. So we need to make sure that as we go in and do right-of-way improvements, we're making those sorts of accessibility questions a priority. And I know staff is something they take very seriously. As far as limits on bikes and scooters, I served on the working group that regulated the scooters, and I served on the working group that recently revamped the bike laws to make them more safe. So anything we can do that was mentioned earlier to get people out of their car and more comfortable using an alternative form of transportation, I think is value added to our city, not only from a pollution standpoint, a traffic standpoint, and a quality of life standpoint, and exercise makes you feel good. So I've been told.
As far as bike lanes go, I'm mixed on that because people have to actually use the bike lanes. Because there's some places in the city where there are bike lanes and no one's using the bike lanes. Sidewalks, everyone should have sidewalks. And we should put those in, but like Randy just pointed to, it's we're playing catch up with the infrastructure and getting to that, and we're just not there yet. And as far as the scooters go, they're death traps. And I just don't feel they're safe. And I would like there to be more bikes.
So I think the Vision Zero is incredibly important, and that means that we need to look at our roads, redesign them to be safer for everyone who uses roads, whether that's bikers, pedestrians, or drivers. And then accessibility is incredibly important. If our sidewalks aren't wide enough for people to use, they're not helpful. If our sidewalks are crumbling and you can't roll on them, they're not helpful. If you get to an intersection and there's not a cutout on both sides, it's not accessible. If you can only exit the sidewalk and you can't get back on the other side, it's not helpful. So I think that it's incredibly important that we invest in this infrastructure so that our Tempe is accessible to people, and then also that we create safer streets and complete streets so that the roads are able to be used by everyone, regardless of ability, age, or mode of transportation.
So the city of Tempe should be accessible to everybody and inclusive to everybody, people with handicaps or not handicaps. If you look at the 2019 community survey and the 2019 business survey, both of those in the top 3 say that they want more improvement on our streets and fixing our sidewalks. So as a council member, one of the most important jobs that we have to do, there's so many things that you would have to do as a council member, but infrastructure is really important. So I would like to see, if we don't have sidewalks somewhere that makes it safe for people to get around, I would like to see us work on that. And one of the things that I like, the scooters, I like the idea of people getting out of their cars and trying some type of a different mode of transportation. What I don't like is when they get dumped in the middle of the sidewalk and somebody like me almost trips on them. But I do think, I do support that, and I think I'd like skateboards. I don't see that many skateboards around, but I do see the scooters.
Okay, next question. Do you feel it is the role of the city government to provide preschool education in Tempe, or is that the role of the school districts? What should Tempe do regarding location of preschools?
I think it's everyone's role, because the children are our future. And we already have the pre-K program, which is incredible, and I think we should just keep going down that path. As far as, like you said, the responsibility, I think it's everyone's responsibility. It takes a village. And I don't care if it's national, local, or, whatever, statewide, but that's what I feel we should do.
So in Arizona, our school districts are not even funded to provide all-day kindergarten. So it would be very difficult for school districts to be able to fund preschool as well. I think it's fantastic that Tempe has stepped in to provide low-income families with the opportunity to go to preschool for free or reduced tuition. Preschool has social, emotional, educational benefits for children, but it also provides economic benefits for families, for family members who have to choose between staying at home with their children or going to work and missing out on not only their current income but future job growth opportunities. And so I think it's important that we continue Tempe Pre so that all of our children have access to preschool, particularly low-income families who cannot afford to send their children to preschool can go to school and receive those benefits so that they are prepared for kindergarten and prepared to start their educations.
So as a mom of 4 kids, I have seen the benefit of pre-K. as a PTO president at a number of different schools, I've seen the benefit of Tempe pre-K. Or pre-K, and I think it's a really important thing that we continue to do, that we continue to fund. I like the idea of continuing to fund that with outside grants and not within the budget, at City of Tempe's budget. But I do think it is important, and again, it is an economic benefit to the families. If we were able to help take care of their kids in the morning, they can get to work earlier. It might be easier for them to get to work. So I think that there's a benefit not only to the student, but to the family itself, and I think that's a really important thing. And it makes a difference in the school, and if you talk to the teachers about the program, they can see the difference not only with that student, but the difference that the whole classroom makes when you elevate the children, and you elevate 2 or 3, it makes a difference in the classroom, and I think that's really, really important.
So unfortunately, is it the role of the city? Traditionally, no. But unfortunately, the legislature is not interested in funding education in the state of Arizona. And during my first campaign, I'd be out there knocking doors, as we're doing now, and people would say, hey, look, I know this isn't really your wheelhouse, but can you do anything about education here? And the answer was largely no, other than the fact that we can pass our bond overrides to fund our schools at a higher level than our surrounding cities because we're just taxing ourselves additionally. And Tempe's never failed to pass one of those overrides. So Tempe's a very education-focused community, and I'm glad that it was mentioned earlier about the secondary and tertiary economic benefits of such a program. 60% of Tempe participants, their parents are able to go back to work or work longer hours or go back to school or secure, a more stable housing situation. So while the benefits of pre-K are undeniable to the child, I mean, we're really seeing a larger return on that from the families. And any sort of program moving forward, it's going to have to include all Tempeans. There needs to be equal access to a program that we're asking Tempeans to pay for.
What is the future of the recycling program?
Sorry. So I am not on, city council, so I can't tell you what the future is for the people making decisions right now. But recycling is incredibly important. For me, addressing the climate crisis, I can't think of anything more important. And so I think that Tempe needs to invest in recycling and finding recycling alternatives if current contracts pull out or if current options are no longer available. I think that we need to have recycling. I also think it's important that we have recycling in multifamily housing and then that multifamily housing places that do not currently have it, and also that we look at green organics and expanding that program as well.
So I don't know a lot about the future of recycling, but I can tell you that in our neighborhood, we're part of the pilot program that has the green organic cans, and those are amazing. And I would love to see that expanded to the rest of the city to be able to use those cans, because we use them in our neighborhood. That's where all of our grass clippings and our branch clippings and all those things go in there. So it's separate from our garbage, and then we also have recycling. So I think it's trying to encourage people. I loved the little vignette thing that Lauren Kuby and Jennifer Adams did, that talking to people about recycling and how the things have changed for the garbage can and what you can put in there and not put in there. I think, again, that it's educating our neighborhoods and our residents of exactly what you can and you can't put in there makes a huge difference for recycling, and I'd like to see that continued.
So my answer on this is really short. So I'm going to provide some background on the question. So how the cities pay for recycling is we would sell that recycled material to China, and they would buy it, and then the city would actually make a profit on recycling programs. Unfortunately, that market is tanked. So where the city once made a profit on providing recycling services to its residents, now we're losing about $500,000 a year just to maintain it. So some cities have canceled the recycling programs altogether. Others have started keeping it in the United States, and we've done some exposés on this where it really just gets picked up and you pay for it to be picked up specially, and it just goes to a landfill. City of Tempe has done their diligence. So we know that when somebody puts something into a recycling bin in Tempe, it's actually being recycled, not just going into a landfill somewhere else, I don't know, New Mexico or something. So the future of the recycling program in Tempe is Tempe is committed to recycling. We're going to continue to recycle, and we're not going to pass a climate action plan and fund it, and then the next day turn around and end recycling services in Tempe. So if you're concerned about recycling, you have nothing to fear. We're going to keep doing it in Tempe.
Yes, I'm not sure what the future is, but I'm of course all for recycling, but it has been becoming at a loss as of late. But I have this one idea. You know how you can't put the plastic bags in the recycling thing? Get a little thing where it just melts down, scoops them in, and you just put all the bags in that, and you make it at home, and it comes in a little block. It's a little invention I'm working on. Anyway, that's what I got there.
Okay, this has to be our last question, so we can get to your finals. But how can Tempe and innovative ASU work together to solve problems such as the homeless, traffic, and development?
I think the city of Tempe is already working with ASU. We use a lot of their resources and the people there to come up with innovative ideas for the city of Tempe, and I think it's continuing to have collaborations with them with issues like the traffic and the climate action plan. There are a lot of people that are working a lot of the plans that we have from ASU with the city of Tempe, so I think that's a really important thing to continue to do.
I agree with that. The city of Tempe does work with ASU quite a bit. We just commissioned a joint traffic study with ASU. ASU generates a lot of traffic. Tempe generates a lot of traffic. Together, it's an outrageous amount of traffic. So we're looking at creative solutions around that with ASU, including pedestrian overpasses, so people can move around the downtown area without having to wait for the light to turn and then cars have to wait. So we're looking at things like that. We're expanding Rural Road and Rio Salado to accommodate the traffic concerns, and that's in partnership with ASU as well. When we have like developments and things come to the downtown area, a lot of times ASU will allow us to use their decision theater, which is a really cool kind of artificial intelligence type thing where you get to go in, see what it'll look like in real time. You can see the traffic impact, the affordable housing study impact. So you can really make an informed decision on when something new comes to the city of Tempe. As far as homelessness too, ASU has been a great partner in that as far as connecting homeless individuals in and around campus to services and letting people know, that there's help available for you in the city of Tempe should you need it, and directing them to be able to find that help. So it's been a great partnership.
Yes, we should definitely utilize ASU. They're number one in innovation. They're problem solvers. And my big thing is the homeless issue. And what I would like to make the homeless issue a teaching moment for ASU and U of A and, FLAG too, everyone. And just have them work together with the city to find solutions. I know they're already doing that a lot in traffic, but I'd like that to gear more towards the homeless epidemic because we need a lot of help on that. And that's of the two priorities that I have, it's affordable housing and the homeless epidemic. And that's what I'd like to work on the most.
I think it's crucial that Tempe continue its partnerships with ASU. I'm probably biased, having gone to ASU for both degrees, but I think that ASU has the best students and professors, people who are really excited and want to learn and can bring new solutions to problems. So I think that we should bring ASU students, bring ASU professors into our decision making as much as possible and lean on their expertise where we can.
Okay, so I have questions left, and we have our mayoral candidate forum next. If you have not had your question asked and you would like them asked of the mayors, I will read these. If you do not, please let me know. And then if you have any additional questions from the mayors when they come up for their forum, please submit those questions. So I'd like to start then, I guess, with you, Randy. You next? 30 seconds. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming, everybody. Thank you again, North Tempe Neighborhood Association and the League of Women Voters for putting this on. These things are always a lot of fun. It's like going to the gym, you're like, oh man, and then when you're there, you're like, oh, this is awesome. So I definitely had a good time, and as I mentioned earlier, I have a record that I'm very proud of. And, Mark kind of poked fun at me, because I have the answers to these questions, and it's because I've worked on so many different issues in the city of Tempe that, I know what I'm doing, and I feel like I do it very well. So with that, I'm out of time already. You have 3 votes for the Tempe City Council, and I am asking for you to select me with one of those votes. My name is Randy Keating, not related to Charles Keating.
I'd like to thank you all for having us here, and I would like to thank all my fellow candidates, because like a year ago, I did not realize what I was undertaking. Randy probably did. These two didn't. But it's been a great journey, and like I said before, I'm less a politician, more a concerned citizen. So, which one of these things not like the other? Right here. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
So again, my name is Klaus. I will work to build a sustainable community, increase affordability, and improve quality of life for residents of all ages. Ballots have already been mailed out. They're due back in the mail by March 4th, or they can be dropped off until March 10th. I ask for you to use one of your votes for me. Thank you.
My name is Doreen Garlotte, and I just want to say that I hope that you take away from this tonight that I am a doer and I get things done, and I want to get things done for the city of Tempe. I want to work with you and I want to work for you to make Tempe the best that it can possibly be. I hope that you'll go to my website, garlottefortempe.com, and learn a little bit more about me and the 40 plus organizations and people in the community that have supported me and endorsed me. And I really, really would like to get one of your votes. So thank you.
I just want to thank you all for coming and participating in this, and for all the neighbors who have shown up who have participated also. We're going to be taking a short break, and then we'll bring the mayoral candidates up here. Thank you very much.